Boruto's team has finally achieved victory in their war against the Shinji. But at what cost? They are finally one step closer to saving Naruto and Sasuke. For chapters, we've been stuck dealing with Mamushi yearning for failure, but now we are free from his shackles with a sacrifice coming from... Alright, no more slander, because what he just did was actually cold. And low-key, this just cements his shit with Himawari even more. As we know, Inojin is in love and strengthened his resolve to kill Mamushi because originally, Himawari was meant to die in another timeline. And meanwhile, whilst all of this is going down, Sarada is out cold. Her Mangekyo Sharingan pushes her too far and now she's blind, unable to prove herself in the middle of a battlefield where everyone's watching. So you know that dream of becoming Hokage? You can kiss it goodbye. But don't worry, Ikemoto is definitely cooking something, so let's break everything down and stick around because it's very important. Chapter 33 of Two Blue Vortex begins with over 1,000 Mamushi clones completely surrounding the squad. With Sarada failing to use all Hirume, things are worse than ever. Kawaki has also shut down from overheating, being useless as ever, but in a rare moment of care, he tells Himawari to help Sarada instead of him. Mind you, this is the same guy who tried to kill her not that long ago, so this feels like Kawaki's guilty conscience creeping in, especially since Boruto's back and they've made a truce to kill Juro together. And speaking of our MC, he rushes in and is instantly worried that Sarada might actually be blind. That's when his sister Himawari pulls up and uses Kurama's healing to stabilize the damage, fixing the blood vessels and stopping it from getting worse. But even she admits she doesn't know if that brings Sarada's vision back. And let's be real, we already know Himawari's healing is busted. She literally saved Inojin earlier when bro was a full-on donut, but there are limits to this. Naruto was only doing stuff like regrowing Kakashi's eye and saving Gai Sensei from the 8th gate because of the 6 Paths Yang seal that Hagoromo gave him. That level of healing isn't on the table anymore. So Himawari isn't out here spawning new eyes. All she can do is repair the damage, which means if Sarada's vision is actually gone, that's where Sakura needs to step in and figure something out. Now you're probably wondering, ABD, why did the writers of Boruto build up Sarada's character for God knows 150 chapters, 300 episodes to aspire to be Hokage, only to fumble it at the most crucial time to save everyone? Well, Sarada failing here is an intentional part of the writing, and it directly mirrors how her father Sasuke's character was developed in the Naruto manga. Sasuke didn't grow through random battles, his big moments came in deep personal fights tied to his identity, like his brother Itachi, Naruto, and dealing with his own past. Those fights forced him to confront who he was, what he believed in, and whether he would choose hatred or love to break the cycle. That's the exact same structure Ikemoto is using to build Sarada's character. Hidari is essentially a clone, Sasuke without a soul, right? A being created from his chakra, carrying fragments of his emotions and memories, but with no understanding of them. That's why he's obsessed with Sarada. He doesn't love her and he doesn't hate her, he's just confused and is interested in her Sharingan. So to him, the only way to understand that connection is to consume her, which is a twisted version of Sasuke's original emotional struggle in the story. Where Sasuke pushed people away to find himself, Hidari tries to absorb others to define himself. This sets up Sarada's real moment against Hidari, where the themes actually fit the story. That fight will represent daughter versus the father's shadow, identity versus its emptiness, and most importantly, love versus consumption. Unlike Sasuke, who had to lose everything to understand bonds, Sarada already understands them, right? So her role is to prove that strength doesn't come from isolation or power alone, but from the connections Sasuke once rejected. And that's where the Shinju memory link becomes crucial that we have been seeing foreshadowed throughout the story. If Hidari begins to access Sasuke's memories and emotions, Sarada won't be just fighting to win, she'll be fighting to force him to understand what those feelings actually mean. Just like Naruto saving Sasuke, Sarada will end up saving what's left of her father's identity. That's why her failure is now necessary in the story, because the real payoff is being saved for later on. But speaking of payoff, Damon truly showed why he calls himself the strongest. He stares down 1000 Mamushi clones ready for all the smoke, and because their IQ has completely tanked, they're basically Otsutsuki zombies. However, Inojin calls it out. The situation is collapsing, everyone's about to die, so he turns to Kashin Koji and straight up begs him to tell them what happens next. That's when we learn even more about his Shinjutsu called 10 Directions. Although it's taken from Shibai, the Otsutsuki Kami, it has limitations. A few days earlier, Koji received visions of the worst possible future. Ada and Himawari will both die, but at the same time, he also saw fragments of new outcomes, like people unlocking new abilities, including Inojin gaining mind transmission formation. The problem is, he hasn't received a new vision since. And because 10 Directions isn't something he controls, the future branches appear randomly. And with singularities like Boruto, Kawaki, and Sarada constantly changing the timeline, those paths keep shifting. That's why Mamushi showing up earlier than expected is a big deal. It lines up with the worst case future, especially with Kobu's arrival happening at the same time. And remember, no matter what timeline there is, Koji says that one thing stays consistent, that Kobu has to die, because if he doesn't, he will spark a civil war, strip Shikamaru of the Hokage title, and label anyone siding with Boruto as a traitor, putting them straight into the bingo book. Now, while Koji is breaking down his power, Amado is clocking everything by listening in like a snitch, because the moment he hears about 10 Directions, he realizes it's tied to Shibai. And if Koji can access something insane like that, then Kawaki must have latent abilities waiting to awaken as well. Remember that Amado and Kawaki also have a deal to revive his daughter. He's already recreated her body through cloning, which is why Delta exists, but the missing piece is bringing her soul and consciousness back. Now, in return, Amado supports Kawaki's goal of removing all Otsutsuki from the world and giving him more power. This will let him achieve his goal of protecting Naruto, right? However, if the only future where Akebi's rebirth only happens in one of the worst possible timelines, then you bet your ass and $1 bajillion that Amado is going to make sure that worst future occurs for his own goal. His entire character has always been about selfish love over the greater good, using everyone as tools. Everyone else will be trying to avoid this bad future and people dying around them. Amado will be silently moving them towards it on purpose. But currently, Inojin locks in. He is told the only way to fix the future is to break it. So that means he needs to step up. That's where we see Demon having the time of his life. He's running a fake, destroying every single clone single-handedly, whilst protecting his sister from being eaten. Because if that happens, the Shinju will evolve beyond what they are now. We even see Boruto straight up decapitating clones right in front of Ada, and she's fully grossed out by the mountain of bodies piling up. But none of that matters, because Mamushi just keeps multiplying like it's nothing. And then we get this cold scene of Damon having already wiped out hundreds of clones, bodies everywhere, heads gone, but even he is starting to get tired now. By the way, you will never catch Naruto getting tired. I'm just saying, during the 4th grade ninja war, Naruto Boruto was literally fighting across multiple battlefields at once, using his shadow clones, constantly supplying chakra to the entire alliance, and still throwing hands with god tier opponents, bruh. Now eventually we see Boruto's team regroup, asking Shikamaru for advice on how they should proceed, as they will lose the battle of attrition. But Shikamaru, he's left silent, blood is frozen in place, and he hasn't said anything. That's when the scene transitions back to Koji to yap more about how they can win. He explains that even now, they've technically avoided the worst future. Mamushi is weaker than he was supposed to be, and more importantly, no one they care about has died yet. But Inojin isn't satisfied. That's not enough for him. So he locks in and figures out a solution on the spot. He remembers what Amado said, that all of Mamushi's clones share a single collective consciousness. And the moment he says that, Kashin Koji realizes that Inojin has reached the exact conclusion he was trying to guide him towards. That he is the one who has to end this, even if it means sacrificing himself. So they switch the plan completely to shatter the future, because right now, Daemon is running out of stamina, and Mamushi is faster in the air, which means escaping is not really an option, even with Boruto backing them up. And Shikamaru, the genius with over 200 IQ, he's still processing everything. Blood is still frozen in place. As a result, Koji uses reverse summoning to send Inojin to the fight, and he immediately tells Himawari to take care of him after his sacrifice. He orders Shikadai to stop a clone's movement so that he can use mind transfer jutsu, and once taking him over, all the clones that were chasing Ada immediately stop. Amado then confirms that Inojin did not take over a simple clone, but the single collective consciousness that rules over the others. And this entire moment in the story is basically a reference to the Matrix, because in that movie, Reloaded, Neo defeats Agent Smith not by fighting every clone individually, but by targeting the core system, controlling them all and destroying him from the inside. And over here in the Boruto story, Inojin is doing the exact same thing. And we know Ikemoto says he loves the Matrix and was inspired for it for creating this story. And now you're probably wondering, how does this even make sense? Well, we know targets with strong wills can force mind transfer out of their body, but Mamushi has been dumbed down to 1 IQ, so this plan works perfectly. 1000 clones are in control, and Inojin orders them to destroy his eyes so that he can no longer multiply, and this instantly destroys all of them at once. Every Mamushi have their eyes explode, and no one has any idea of what's happening. Like, I kid you not, Delta out here is saying, I don't really get it, and she's confused. Well, I tell you what, Delta, Inojin just earned some respect. And on top of that, the story actually cooked, because this is Inojin combining both sides of his parents. Remember in the anime, Sai's calm, calculated mindset, and Ino has an emotional strength and loyalty, which they were trying to pass on to their son when they were doing a whole arc of training him. And now we've realized that it's all paid off. However, of course, the kickback occurs to his body. Inojin is now blind, and Himawari heals the bleeding. But now two characters need eye surgery, with their parents showing massive concern. Ino and Sai are not gonna let this slide, because from their perspective, remember that Shikamaru said in the last few chapters, think about your children, don't you want to see their safety, don't you want to protect them, the village comes first instead of politics, all that bullshit. Well, where's all that gone now? Their son was just thrown into a near-death situation for a plan that they don't even fully understand, especially with omnipotence still warping everyone's perception on what's the truth. So of course, let's be real, the reason Inojin pushed himself this far was for Himawari. In chapter 26, we see him gifting her honey that she loves out of nowhere. And in that very same chapter, he promised Boruto he's gonna protect everyone, including his sister. So with him ending up in hospital after this? You bet Ikamoto is setting up an emotional payoff with Himawari visiting him to make their ship sail even more. And in the meanwhile, Boruto collects the Thorn Bulb, where he informs Kawaki that they need to save Bug, as he will die if he's not returned to normal. But that's where the real plot twist kicks in. Code has been watching this entire situation from shadows, and now he's finally making the move for revenge. This guy hasn't appeared in the manga for over 3 years. Bro was called a clown. His own creations told him that in chapter 3, and he made this entire declaration of revenge but got folded by Damon and Boruto like nothing. So now he wants to be a step closer to becoming Otsutsuki, and the bulb is basically the key to his evolution for more power. Now, to enjoy more peak fiction, watch this video on your screen right now. You won't regret it.